Welcome back to nomastea. I'm Leslie Epps, and I'll be your host today. We will be continuing our talk about COVID and architecture, and today we're joined by two of our alumni as well as some board members. We welcome Danae and Yulia, two alumni, and Gabby and Aprilia, two board members, to talk about COVID, architecture, and the future and the past. So let's get into it. So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So please introduce who you are, tell us how you're doing, and right now, what is the biggest impact COVID has on your life in any way?
Okay, I'll start. My name is Yulia, and I'm a graduate from the Bachelor of Architecture program in 2008. So right when the last recession happened. I think I'm doing okay, but I think it changes every single day. I think sometimes I feel like, I feel settled and I feel like things are going to be fine. Other times I just feel completely overwhelmed and unsure about what's going to happen. So I think it changes day by day and maybe even hour by hour, depending on what's going on for me. And then a little bit about myself. So I've been out of architecture school now for, I guess, 12 years, which sounds absolutely crazy to say. I'm still very much involved with City College. I've been on the alumni board since 2009. And I love coming back and being a part of the school community, and really excited to see what's happening there now with the new dean. I'm a licensed architect. I worked for a long time at one firm where I had most of my professional career, very much related to what happened during the recession. But now I'm actually no longer there, started my own design build practice, and I'm a graduate student at the new school. So I'll leave it there.
That's awesome. I'm Dani Cesario. I am a licensed architect and also, sorry, I'm waffling. I'm going to start over. Hopefully you can edit it out. But anyway, Dani Cesario. I'm a licensed architect, class of 2010 at City College, and also did the 5-year Bachelor's of Architecture. I'm a project manager now at SOM and focused on commercial, residential projects, and some healthcare as well. And I think graduating out of school towards the end of the last recession, there was a lot of residual stuff that went along with it. And I recently just did an article in Wallen and Dobb, which is basically my organization to help people who are in architecture or design related fields and might need support, like the conversation we're just about to have. So, and how am I doing? I think it changes from hour to hour. I think the biggest challenge I'm having right now is navigating work from home and managing my teams and their anxieties, along with like our clients' anxieties and my own. Also while homeschooling and caregiving to my 2 small kids. So that has been interesting, to say the least.
My name is Gabriella, and I was the host on the last episode. Right now, I'm also a second-year student in architecture, and I'm having fun. And right now, my biggest impact on COVID for me, the biggest impact on me is that pretty much like the same as like what Danielle was saying about the whole life scheduling. It's kind of like so crazy to change from like having like a setting. Like before, I used to just be able to go to school and be like, this is school time, this is work, and I just like work the whole day, and then I come home and I could just relax. But now the place where I always relax is now the place I work. So it's like very annoying trying to like change my mindset and schedule myself. So that's pretty much it.
Hi everyone, I'm Aprilia Stanley. I'm a 4th-year undergrad and I'm the president here at NOMAS. I know COVID-19 has affected every single one of you guys in a lot of different ways, and it's definitely affected me. One way it's impacted me is the fact that my home place is now my workplace. In a sense, my family members have now become my classmates. And so it's definitely hard to stay motivated in a place that was once a refuge of relaxation. And hopefully during this podcast, I'll help give all our listeners a way to stay motivated as well.
Here are some questions for you guys. To the alumni, how did you guys feel graduating during the recession? And for students, how do you guys feel now as you're still students during COVID? How is that happening in all your minds?
So I graduated in 2008. So right into, I guess, the beginning of the recession. And what's interesting is graduated in May, the recession really hit in September. And I think I didn't really realize what was happening. So I think right now is somewhat of a different moment because you're graduating into an uncertain situation versus when I graduated in May, like everything was fine. It was only in the fall that the recession hit. So for me, it was just dealing with it as it came. Like it wasn't something that I could prepare for. And I went through 2 layoffs, one at the end of 2008 and then another one at the end of 2009. And both were absolutely devastating, especially as a young architect who is so eager to practice the skills I've learned in school and become that professional that like I envisioned myself to be. So I think I found it surprising, which I think is maybe different than right now, although I'm sure you find it surprising as well to be graduating into this environment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like graduating in 2010 was still a level of uncertainty. And I think because we had quite a lot of contact with the alums who had gone before us, and like just sort of seeing what they were going through, like our friends that graduated in the years before, like Yulia, and how they were navigating the recession. The other bit of it was, I think, as a 20-odd-year-old graduating, like your perspective is very different. You have this sort of peaceful ignorance about like the world and stuff like that. I was supporting myself in university, but at the same point in time, it's very different pressure now, running a household and like having children and having a family and all of those different things that may weigh in on how you're doing economically. But going back to being a student, I think because we had heard everything that everyone else was saying who came before us, there was more of an earnest to be hired someplace. It was less of a picking and choosing like your favorite firm that you've seen an architectural record. It was more about like being able to pay back your student loans 6 months later, and in the interim being able to eat and provide for yourself and that sort of thing,
That sounds really scary. Like, did you feel like you ever made any like decisions out of desperation that you regret or you like love? Like anything that like you feel like maybe wasn't like it's a scary mindset to start making big decisions of like where your life is going to end up,
100%. I mean, I think because we were already deep into the recession by 2010, there's that year between when you're like 4th year and you have to apply for your thesis and all of that. So in 2008, I would have been in my 3rd year. And so I became really, really adamant and like was always in my counselor's office about what do I need to get out of here on time? Like what do I need to matriculate? How there were a lot of people who couldn't get into the final year of the Bachelor's of Architecture because maybe they didn't have all of the credits or like their portfolio and stuff like that wasn't in line. So I sort of like took all of the anxiety that I had from the previous classes and really focused in on making sure that my portfolio would allow me to get into thesis and graduate on time, and also trying to make sure that my load was a little bit lighter because I figured if there's like 40 odd out of us coming out of this school in 2010 and we're all going to be looking for jobs, how could I get before the not before the curveball, but before the desperation? Like how could I get out in front of the desperation? Meaning if I had to start that 2nd semester of thesis year it would have been January 2010, was there a way that I could have a job either part-time or like full-time lined up and ease my course load a little bit so that I was still full-time as a student but still able to work, if that makes sense? So I put like a lot of my energy into trying to find a job, and I started the job hunt I would say maybe like around the Thanksgiving before I graduated. So that would have been Thanksgiving 2009, to try and get out ahead and like get my stuff out there and, you know, see what worked, see what didn't.
Yeah, one thing I'll add for me was my main focus was I want to become a licensed architect. So what are the things that I need to do in order to accomplish that? I think that was kind of my North Star during that time. And I knew that I needed to have experience in an architecture office doing the things that would get me IDP credit. And so I tried very hard to continue to get work experience in the field. But, you know, during that time, I had so many friends. I mean, we all got laid off. I mean, it was just such a devastating time to be in. But what I will say is we had a really strong network between us. And so all of the work that I was able to get during that time, even if it was just like part-time and like, hey, come here and do some models, or, you know, put together this drawing set, I was like, yeah, sure. Like anything as long as it would continue to move me forward in that marker towards getting my license. And having a strong network of friends from City College really helped me in landing different jobs. I mean, I think all of my jobs that I've had have come through connections I made at City College, either through professors or through students. So, I mean, that's an incredible testament to, you know, the kind of depth of relationship you can have in school and how you can really rely on the people that you meet to help you along. Like you don't have to be going out into the darkness. There's a lot of people that can support you on that journey.
100%, Yulia. I think that one of the great things about City College is like most of the people who went there either like know somebody who went there or know each other, and that level of connectivity definitely does help. I think also not being particularly posh about where you ended up, you know, and being willing to roll up your sleeves, which is something that I've heard about every single like hiring firm has said that City College students have this, like, they know you don't have to handhold them throughout the process, and they're pretty versatile in terms of their skill set. So I think that like coming out in the recession and coming out now, one thing that we can definitely speak to is being versatile and being flexible, and you know, not that you're not particular, but sort of being goal driven. You know, I mean, for you, it was the AREs. For other people, it was just like making sure that you could pin down a job that would allow you to build up the skill sets that you may not have gotten during your academic time. But to keep moving, you know, like if you allow the overwhelm to sort of sit on top of your chest and not allow you to move forward, I think that that's the beginning of the end. You know, I think we both have friends who, you know, they went into architecture, or they may have gone into like adjacent fields. Like my first job out of school was at an engineering company, but I think having those skill sets definitely have helped propel us in the types of stuff that we know now and like what we're counted on to do in our current roles.
Hi guys. Speaking of versatility, I was talking with my mentor the other day about the recession, and she was going to school on a study abroad program because she was from Sri Lanka, and literally her dad gave her like 2 years to get a job, or she would have to come back and just be an engineer like he wanted her to be. And the only reason she got a job is because of her versatility and like knowing these programs such as AutoCAD and Adobe, because without knowing that, she probably wouldn't have gotten a job. And a lot of the students that she graduated with didn't have the information of AutoCAD and Adobe like she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like even now, like just because of the whole like of what's happening right now, I feel like I'm like kind of like crazy about gaining more skills. Like I've just been like Googling on YouTube, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like I've, even though like editing and like things to do with like Photoshop or drawing or I don't know what. I just feel like just because also like we're at home all day, it's like I feel like I just kind of want to learn everything and anything. And also like during this time, I've been like obsessing over my portfolio because like even before this happened, everyone kept saying like a recession was going to go on, and like during last semester, like in the fall, people were saying like a recession's going to come. So everyone has been like going crazy trying to find internships. So like I started going to like firm tours to go look for like just to see like what is a firm like. And I'm just like asking them like all these questions of like, oh, like what, how do you pick your interns, or like really like obvious things just to like find out like when I do make my portfolio, like what are they looking for, you know?
I think you have like 100% the right idea, because at least you're channeling like the worries and like the thoughts into something productive. Do you know what I mean? Like I think some people end up being really paralyzed, and there are some days that, you know, it all gets to be too much and you might just have to sit still and drink your coffee, sort of thing, you know. But I think trying to move forward, trying to diversify your skill set, trying to make sure that when the time comes for you to present yourself in front of a firm, they could be like, oh, this is Gabriella. We walked her around the last time there was a firm tour. Or, you know, this portfolio stands out because, I mean, being on the hiring committee, sometimes it's like really brutal. Like if somebody uses a font or a program that doesn't allow it to be readable or to look through, like hiring committees that have thousands of people applying just don't have that level of patience, and they may have very limited spots, you know. So if you send in a resume to a place that's like, please attach your portfolio, and you don't bother, you're just canned. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I love where this conversation is headed. I think it's really good points here. I want to ask specifically about, you know, searching for a job. I think that's something that's on the top of a lot of people's minds, like both now and during the recession. You guys talked a bit about this, but I think something that you guys hit on is, you know, we all have value and how to build that value. So I'm curious as to, for alumni, how did you leverage your value in such an uncertain time? Because I think it's hard for us to do that during regular times, but how do you bring your value to the table and get what you're worth when everything kind of depreciates in a sense? And to current students, how is the job searching going for you guys now? Like, are you guys thinking about these things?
I think one thing about value is, and I alluded to this before, is having people that can vouch for you, right? For me, that's where my work opportunities came from. Somebody saying, hey, I know this person and she's fantastic. Why don't you interview her? Or and then why don't you hire her? So I feel very kind of incredibly lucky to have those relationships where people have seen the work that I do and how I do my work. And they're able to recommend me and say, hey, you should really interview this person. And then when I have hired and interviewed people from my previous firm, you know, if somebody recommended someone to me, like that would be the person that I would go to first because they've already been vetted by someone. It's not like going out into, you know, like Danny saying, you know, looking at like thousands of portfolios and resumes. It's much easier to go with someone that's already been vetted and vouched for by somebody that you know and trust. So having somebody else recognize your value, and it could be your peer. It doesn't have to be somebody that is, you know, as a professor or is kind of above you in position. It could be somebody that's like you, just your friend, but they happen to work somewhere or they know someone that's looking for someone and they can say, hey, take a look at this person. Like they do really great work. You should interview them. And like, if somebody tells me that, I'll be like, yeah, totally. I'm game. I want to do that. So I would say, who are those people for you? And who can you be? You can be that person for somebody else as well.
That is a really great point, Julia. I think also getting outside of your head helps to do that. So for instance, if you've got a friend who you know is great with graphic design or may have in studio at some point showed you a trick on, you know, Adobe Illustrator or another platform, and they might have an issue account that's like really great, or have photography skills that are great. Like those things and like gigs like that can definitely help backfill the need as you're looking for jobs. Like you can freelance doing wedding photography, like as some of my fellow students did as we were going into the workforce. And being able to recommend them for like future gigs. Like I think also in terms of value, when you're able to, let me just back up a bit. I didn't work in a traditional like architecture firm until like post graduation, maybe like 2 or 3 years after. Like I went to an engineering firm first, as I said. And the thing is, like the recession, even though it happened, and it was towards the end of 2010, in 2011, a lot of the folks at that engineering firm ended up getting furloughed. And I think, post-recession, people sort of looked at their jobs and their roles within those jobs slightly different. And so like we weren't like shell-shocked when people got furloughed in 2011. It was like, okay, we'll just do the same thing that we did a few years before. I think also when you're able to come along to a firm and say, I've worked in an expediting firm and I've worked in different capacities, they can see that you're bringing things to the table. Like maybe you know a bit more about zoning. So when you have to do a zoning analysis, you're not just sort of coming at it blind. And one of the things that I touched on recently was about soft skills and hard skills. So like hard skills being your Revit and all your programs and your technology, but your soft skills being things like being able to communicate, being dependable, being like all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those bring skills to the table because you are up against people who also know Revit, who also know all of the different programs like Aprilia. Am I saying your name correctly? Aprilia?
Aprilia, it's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Like you were saying before about AutoCAD, the things that you can do to differentiate yourself are definitely things that bring more value to the table.
Yeah, and I like to agree with both of what you guys are saying because I had an experience last spring in which I was, through networking and through knowing people, I got the opportunity to visit the site of the new Statue of Liberty Museum that was coming up last summer, I believe, before it even was introduced to the public. And that's where I met someone from FX Collaborative, and just based off of like my communication and my personality, I landed like a job for a week, like during spring break, and they didn't look at my portfolio or anything. They looked at how efficiently I got things done, the programs I could work with, and that's how they hired me. They didn't even look at my resume or my portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I also got a job I got like multiple jobs at my school because of like the year before I started like college at City College. I did a program called like Boss Girls, and it was about entrepreneurship. And so because of that, like the little like, it's like not a company, but it's also not like it's a student resource, but it's like very weird because it's all about entrepreneurship. So they're kind of private at the same time, they're part of the school. And they took me to so many things. Like they got me part of like fellowships, and they got me like a little internship as like a communications assistant. And it was really amazing. So it's like, I get that idea of like stepping in the foot, like getting your foot in the door so you can find other opportunities. And luckily because of them, my resume looks like amazing compared to like where I thought I would be as like a third year in college.
Getting involved definitely helps. And the more obviously right now, none of us can get out there in the usual sense. But there are like other resources that are happening virtually where you can sort of take a look around of where you want to be. I don't think we have to just like focus on, just get a job, any job sort of thing. If you if you can and you want to still be selective with where you apply and where you put your energy, that's still an option. But it's very important, especially when things go back to like normal, to attend those like first Fridays, those office tours, to like to mingle with people. Like I see Leslie at a lot of different things, and it doesn't even matter if you're like sat in the audience someplace just sort of taking it all in. You don't have to do it. Like I'm not fond of the word networking, but if you just like show up, and I think that that's like part of it. Like just show up and go out there, and you'll be surprised how many people that you know from university or wherever that you may know. But going to those things, at the very least, like you can tuck it in your toolkit and use it to boost your confidence. So like to what Gabriella was just saying, you didn't think that in joining all of these different things, it would be as much as it has been. But being able to put your foot in the door with a bit of confidence as well goes a really long way, so that you're able to talk about that like in your interviews and like whoever you meet. You'd be surprised.
Can I just pop in there really quick? It's funny you mentioned First Fridays. I got my first architectural job because I went to First Friday and met the principal. So there you go. That's how you get those jobs. I just want to interject. Thank you guys for joining part 1. We really appreciate everything you're saying. We will continue this conversation in part 2. So everyone tune in. Listeners, thank you so much for being with us. And I hope to hear from you. Your comments or any likes, let us know, and join us at part 2.